fun one.
Attention, people of Earth, I have an important announcement to make.
Oh, no!
Tony Caravan. You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you don't.
Good morning!
Okay.
Tape deck alert. Tape deck alert.
Thank you.
Brilliant!
This should be a fun one. I got you'll actually I've got the Antarctica cap on, as we said on the title card here, the beanie. I don't normally do this. You know, I don't normally get into direct criticism. I occasionally do. I mean, perhaps this will be constructive criticism. The title of the show is We Should All Leave the Big Three, 6 January 22. And there's a chat that says, sorry, Tim, beanies are for kids, you know, based on the old tricks thing. It's Thursday, the 6th of January, as previously alluded to. It's 4:25 a.m., and I am coming to you absolutely, positively live. And we've got the camera 2 looking out, watching the trucks go by. Yeah, this is, with the lighting, you can hardly make out the this cap of mine, but that's okay. I want to get rid of the gas repair thing. All right. This is where we begin. So I was watching the the Beanie Guy Show, a Tim Pool show. And there was a discussion yesterday. We're all YouTubers here. And there was a discussion yesterday about Rogan going to, and it might have been yesterday or the day before, I don't know, when they tape these things and when they pop them onto YouTube. I'm a YouTuber, I don't go to too many of these other channels. I put some of my videos on Rumble, and I put links. I do put some links on social media, like a Twitter and a Facebook account that I just keep active for the sole purpose of just putting a link to some of my shows. They're also on, I think, Tumblr, which does anybody even use that thing anymore? But it's like, it's an option to like share too, so I push it. I don't have an assistant. I don't have any engineers here. So it's a one-man show. And the thing about it was, I'm thinking that, and what I'm going to try to push here is that it's not enough that like something like 500,000 people migrated over to Getter because of the basically this Joe Rogan and these various guests, the controversy of of the deplatforming or the banning of and eventually the taking down of the actual show of this guy that I'm not even going to mention. But that's besides the point. I mean, there have been so many of these people that have been taken down that it's like, it doesn't really matter which one. But the idea is that while you may get a migration of 500,000 people going over there, they still are addicted. It's still an addiction to Twitter. It's an addiction, to Facebook. Now, as I've said last year on some shows when I've got into similar discussions, but not what we're going to talk about right now. Regarding Facebook, I understand why some people stay on Facebook because it's more of a family thing. I know I had quit Facebook and was off for years. And the only reason I was pressured even not to quit, this is, years ago, because I was one of the first guys on Facebook. I was an early adapter of all technology. Like I said, I was on the internet in 1985, literally. and, had websites and, we call them BBSs and stuff back then. And we were using 300 baud modems, right? So I know all about, I've been on this thing, this has been a pretty long 35-year ride for me, at least. And I was using computers back in the early 80s, and my college roommate in the late 70s, or was it early 80s, right around 80, or I'm trying to think, probably late 70s, was a computer science major and was one of the first guy to take me over to the computer science lab where they were using, excuse me, I want to get that caffeine while it's hot, where they were still using key punches. And a key punch, my latest book, a key punch card, which I've shown you many times, but I put a copy of it in my book because I get into the discussion of that a little bit. In here, you can see the word GPT-3 AI up there too. But, originally the computers, you would have a stack of those cards. Oh, I think I may have totally screwed up 3D man over there. You can still see the game overhead. Well, anyway. But when they first started to bring in cathode ray tube monitors and keyboards, and it was like the IBM-ish type of thing. Though if I recall, those things were like yellow. The light was like an amber. It wasn't like big blue. That's what they used to call the IBM was called Big Blue because it was like the type was blue, right? Or the screen was blue and the type was white, I think. But I believe those machines back in that computer science lab were amber color. But anyway, to make a long story longer, I've been around this game for a long time. Wrote code, developed things and innovated stuff. We were the first ones to do webcasts. Before, we were using real audio. I was broadcasting from remote parts of the world, Antarctica, the Himalayas, and the North Pole. Utilizing satellite phones and computer technology that was way beyond that. That our quality was better than the network TV doing remote reports, like when they would do that's so just so you qualify. I've got a right to talk about these things. Okay, I've been doing this for years. All right. So anyway, everyone migrates. So the idea, first of all, just to get the Facebook thing out of the way that I started, I always, whenever something new came out, I was always first to jump there to test it, kick the tires, see what it was about, and get into it. And like I said, I was the first one. I was the first one to develop, one of the first to develop an app that was featured on the Steve Jobs put on the Apple website, right? When we were developing those before the APIs and before everything came out, where the various development of how people created apps for smartphones and the iTunes store. We were using just like HTML5 and things like that. And it worked fine. And I still have some sites that I built back then that still function fine. And they still, because of the coding, if you go to the URL, it still shows up and fits in a smartphone and runs exactly like an app. Okay? All right. And I've been to the Mac Worlds and the CompUSAs and all those conventions in Vegas and San Francisco and all that stuff. Met all the key players years ago when I used to live in L.A. Anyway, so when I got on Facebook, it was, and it was just to test it out, to use it. So, this is interesting. Let's see how it goes. And, and there were a lot of family, and suddenly I was starting to get all these invites, friend requests, or whatever you call them. And it was from all these long lost second and third cousins, 16 times removed. Just a lot of family members. And so suddenly, and people are sharing pictures of this and talking about that. And so a lot of people on Facebook like I say, to make the story longer, they, they're kind of pressured through their families and, old high school friends or something like that to stay on there. So you can't compare Facebook to Twitter, because it's a different thing. And I don't blame anybody for being on Facebook. You know what I mean? It's not like just because Zuckerberg is doing this, and says that, and they're censoring this, that, the other. I don't. If someone says, I understand why they're not leaving, because I felt that same pressure years ago, and finally I broke away. And it wasn't until last year when I embarked on this 365-day doing a show every day for 365 days. The Guinness World Record thing. 2 hours, a 2-hour show, 360, some of them weren't 2 hours, but close to 2 hours every day, 365 days a year. All right. By myself, complete with all the effects.
Quality, quantity, and variety.
ROCKFLUX.
Let's get this show on the road.
And branded, right? With all the accoutrement, and 10 books that I wrote, and the CDs, and the alternative sites, the great solar stuff, the morning show mug, and all of, the hoodies, the T-shirts, the whole 9 yards, right? No engineers, no producer, nobody else sitting in the room, just do it. It was an experiment. I took a year of my life and did it. Just like when I took years to write 10 books and I wrote 50 songs. These were all creative ventures, right? I jumped into it, dove into it. Well, for that experiment, I got back on Facebook just for the sole purpose of putting a link to these videos. Okay? That's a different story. Now, prior to that, I was on Twitter as a Twitter person, and I was gaining thousands and thousands of followers on Twitter, whatever they call them. They call them followers on Twitter, I forget. And just prior to that purge about a year and a half ago, and then suddenly all these people just disappeared by the thousands because they were all just like, either banned or kicked off, right? And nobody really talks about that because they just talk about the big names, when some major, it's like the YouTube millionaires. You talk about the YouTube millionaires, but I call them YouTube millionaires. Some of them are just making six figures, say. But you hear talk about that, but you don't hear talk about there's 2 billion active users on YouTube, for example. All right, 2 billion, worldwide. So you hear everybody talks about Rogan, or you hear, not Tim Pool, you hear these names by certain people, and there's other people who just have these various vlogs. They're building a place out in the wood, My Self-Reliance. I watch that thing, that guy out there up in Canada doing his thing, right? So everybody's got their thing if you're a YouTuber. But I mean, that's who you hear about. You hear about the big players, or like I said, the basically the elite, right? I mean, everyone used to talk about PewDiePie, and in all honesty, a couple of years ago, I watched some PewDiePie shows fairly regularly. I thought the guy was pretty funny, particularly when he used to go to have those go after memes and stuff. Be that as it may. So I do the same now on Twitter. I didn't close the account. I just stopped tweeting. So all I do on Twitter right now is post a link to this video, and that's it, right? The daily video. But I'm changing this year, and I think it's time to leave Twitter. You see? And that's what the purpose of this title card is, and I'm sorry if it's, if I offend Beanie Boy, but he had stated that he felt that the negative part of people migrating over to Getter, right, was that it would further cause a rift, a division between these, various ideological sides, so to speak, right? And I vehemently disagree with that. I vehemently disagree with it because, and for many reasons, and I'm going to get into it in this show, because I think this is a really important thing to talk about. For those new to this program,
you're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
And I do drink a lot more coffee early on than later on. And so why I disagree with that statement and why I really, really disagree with it is that it's Jabberwocky, right? In other words, it's Twitter that has caused the divisiveness in this country. I mean, among others. I mean, obviously the media, people like Trump are sticking a stick in a hornet's nest, as I use that terminology often. But apart from all of that, Twitter is probably the primary, most hate-filled, divisive, negative force in American society, culture, politics. I mean, just go down the line. And so I would hope that these 500 million people who went to migrated or moved over, opened a Getter account, I hope they use it, because I hope it's not like Parler or Gab or what, the way this, because these things happen from time to time. And then everyone goes over and opens up an account, and then you go over. I remember like on the Parler thing and like on Gab, when these events, similar events, but not of this magnitude occurred. So I thought, okay, great. Finally, we're going to get rid of this ridiculous Twitter, I don't know what you would call it. Just the society destroyer, culture destroyer, But what happened was you'd go there and people would have a couple of posts or whatever they called them on those sites. And people were still on Twitter tweeting away like crazy. And the only people who weren't were people who got banned. So it's like people are afraid to leave. And that's why I talked about the Facebook thing. I understand why you won't leave Facebook, because you may well have, that may be your only contact with some old high school buddies and your family who lives on the other side of the country or, wherever. Okay? That's a different story. And screw Zuckerberg and the metaverse and all that stuff. All right? You're using it for your own means. And I see people do that. Okay? They're posting pictures of their kids for their, grandmothers and, stuff like that. So what? Yeah, Facebook is evil. All right? Granted. All right? But, there's a thing about data collection and selling data and stuff like that. There are certain people, right, particularly I could think even like family members of mine, that there is of no consequence the fact that they're collecting data on them, right? Some grandmother, it doesn't matter if Facebook is selling, whatever. Some of the people I know, particularly elderly people, they don't buy online, and it's like they're not. In other words, the data is useless that they have on them, and so it doesn't even come in there. In other words, I remember I was a creative director of an advertising agency, among other things. All right. A demographic profile of someone who is a non-consumer is basically a waste of time and a waste of storage. Okay? It does nothing. Its only function would be to know that people within that particular demographic profile, with that demographic profile, are non-consumers, and we need not go after, spend advertising dollars, marketing money to try to go after that person, because they are not going to buy another car. They're not going to buy Doritos. They're not going to buy Mountain Dew. Okay, they're not going to buy anything. Okay, what they're going to buy is ointment. From a prescription ointment that they get because of arthritis or something, prescription pill or something. And it's useless for even, in these cases, for even the pharmaceutical companies to advertise to them, because, that particular demographic, and I'm generalizing, is more likely to get their prescription, a generic version of the drug. Okay? That's Facebook. All right? There's a big chunk of Facebook. That's what Facebook's becoming. And that's why Zuckerberg and his people are moving into the metaverse and into virtual reality and augmented reality, because they realize that they need create another thing. And believe me, I know, my 88-year-old mother is not going to be putting on or even getting a VR headset or a pair of Ray-Ban glasses that does something similar. It's not going to happen, all right? It's just simply not going to happen, all right? So that's that. So forget about Facebook, all right? But let's focus on Twitter here. Twitter's a different story. Twitter is the problem, all right? Twitter has always been the problem, all right? So if you are one of the 500 million people that migrated from Twitter to Getter or whatever, I haven't set up an account there yet, all right? I mean, I'm not political anymore. So like I say, this is social. I'm more of a social commentary and into pop culture. That's my thing. And so I'm observing this thing, and I'm using the medium to criticize the medium, right? The medium is the message, the McLuhan thing, right? And so get off of Twitter, It's like, don't say you're going to quit cigarettes. Quit smoking. All right? And it is an addiction, and it is like nicotine, like I said. Now, unfortunately, I don't have that addictive personality, When I quit cigarettes, I just quit. They were stale, and they were overpriced, and I couldn't get a fresh pack. And I've said this before to people. It used to be pure tobacco pleasure for me, I actually enjoyed it, all right? But I quit, right? And I quit because they were stale. I couldn't get a fresh pack. That's why I quit. It wasn't even the price, because at the time I was making, a really good, it was in I quit the smoking in the 90s, I guess it was, late 90s. And I didn't smoke. I wasn't a kid smoker. I smoked like there was this interim time in my thing. And knock on wood, I had a CT scan last summer and my lungs are clear, which is good. So, see what happens with that. But I know for some people, they just can't quit. And there's other things people are addicted to. And they're not necessarily substance abuse. It's just any kind of thing, right? But Twitter's an addiction. And people feel as if, and I know when I was on it, I was kind of semi-addicted to it. It was my go-to morning thing to do. Like this is, right? But I took it off. I ended it, at the end of the year. And then I'm just doing these special shows that are like specific in nature. Okay. And I'm skipping, I don't know how many, I just stopped doing shows there for a while, and I'll stop doing them again. If I don't have something to say, I'm not going to do a show. Last year was an experiment to see if I could do 365 consecutive shows, morning shows, one man by myself, complete with all this kind of stuff, you know.
It's an excursion into the odd and into the very, very different.
And, you know, we had some classic shows, and, you know, and let's face it, and some of them were just a lot of fun.
Really funny. Really funny.
So what I'm getting at is if you're going to go to Getter and close your frickin' Twitter account. It's time that we put Twitter out of business. You see? They have been the thorn in the side of us all. They've literally destroyed the country. It wasn't Facebook, okay? It really wasn't. If you really, really look at it, you know, it's just like they used to say, like one of those Russia things was like Facebook put a couple, or Russia some Russian group put a couple ads on Facebook or something. I don't even know where the ads are on Facebook. I remember at the time looking, going like, where are these so-called ads, right? And I didn't even have an ad blocker at the time. People don't even notice the ads, right? It's data collection. They were selling data. They still do. So what? Right? I get a report from Google. It's like this map. It shows every place I've been in the past month, right? You know, they know everything I've done. You know, the government's always known everything you've done. And yes, Google is part of that whole, you know, shebang, all right? Excuse me. And remember, I lived and worked in D.C. too. All right. And New York 3 times. And L.A. several times. Okay. I've been all over. Crossed both the ocean. All right. So have the balls to quit Twitter. You know. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to post, when this show's over, you know, we're going to talk about this and get into different things about this whole scene. But I'll post today's show on Twitter because it's an anti-Twitter show. You know, the link to this. And then I'm going to close my Twitter account probably tomorrow or over the weekend. You know, maybe I'll put some last, you know, great, maybe I'll go out with a bang, you know, some kind of tweet that'll just get me kicked off. Right? Get me totally banned. So rather than just quit, I'll just do that. That would be a great thing for 500 million people to do. For 500 million people to post a tweet, whatever it is now, is it still 140 words? I don't even know, because like I say, I don't type, I don't tweet anymore. I just post do a shared link right through the Google site. But whatever it is, use whatever limited amount of characters you have, and whatever, say, the top 5 things that you can mention that will get you kicked off, permanently banned, right? Put them in a tweet, right? Now, wouldn't that be a real trip if 500 million people, right? Or 500,000, is it 500,000? Probably not 500 million, right? I may have misspoken there. But it doesn't matter still. 500,000 people, that would be cool. It'd be nice if it was 500 million. Let me see. Let's just take a quick look here. I want to do a little search rather than, be here in the zone of questioning. How many people moved to Getter? 500,000 follow Rogan to Getter. Okay. Joe Rogan tells 7.8 million followers to join him. That would be nice. That would be nice. And like I'm saying, it's not enough to just go, wouldn't it be great if you went out with a bang, right? These sites, man. Okay. So it would be great. So, half of those 7.8 million people are pussies, or, and a lot of them are probably, just curiosity people or who knows what. But if just a couple of million people would post sometime over the weekend, like I say, the top 5 things that are guaranteed to get you banned, right? Something about, 2020 election, something like that. Something about, the thing in your arm, something, those kind of things, right? And just post those things. Post those and you'll get permanently banned. But there'd be millions of these tweets all over Twitter. That would be not only an unbelievable statement, all right? And then it would be the decimation of the platform. Because then what I was trying to get about with this Beanie Boy thing, I'm sorry for saying that too, Tim. I don't know you, but I do. It's just kind of, and by the way, that the @ symbol with the beanie on top of it, it kind of looks like a prophylactic or something. Maybe you want to rethink. I take it from a guy who was an ad agency, a graphics guy for years. I think you might want to rethink that logo. Kind of looks like a rubber or something. Anyway, yeah. So I think Poole was way off and way out of bounds and way wrong, because that social media jabberwocky is the destructive force in the U.S. And it's not going to further divide us by getting out of Twitter and having that platform just become an echo chamber for a bunch of weirdos from the New York Times, Washington Post, and some of these far left, Antifa and BLMers and these women that just, have and soy boys. People have a warped view of life. Let them all have their little echo chamber, right? And let it just fade into oblivion. Because as I was trying to explain about the demographics, like I say, you have to look at this from a advertising marketing standpoint. The whole purpose of data mining, data collection is to make money on that. It's always follow the money. And so if you have an echo chamber and everyone is of the same ilk, then that data becomes less valuable, right? Because you already know the people who are looking to purchase that data, they already know that. It's no longer, there's no complexity, there's no nuance, there's no new discoveries to be made. And so the price of the data itself also goes down, which means the platform loses even more money. Because someone says, well, it's a left-wing thing. We kind of know those people. We already have them on our mailing lists. We already, we kind of know what they buy, what they like. And quite frankly, apart from some of the elitist journalists who's still there, the people with the blue checks, the rest of those people, they're pretty much non-consumers. They're, living off mommy and daddy, or they've got some kind of little gig job that just barely gets them, gets by, that kind of thing. Yeah, they're non-consumers. See, that's the point you have to understand. It's a consumerism society. And, if you can't capitalize on the data or whatever's being supplied to you, you're not interested in it, or the value of it goes way down. Now, what does this mean, if this were to occur? So let's look at it, let's take it to the other level. So suddenly Twitter becomes this insignificant, irrelevant platform. So it becomes Gab or Parler, right? It's just some place where people do whatever, right? Like I have a Minds website, page. And Minds, it's, that they've got, there's a strange crowd over at Minds, all right? But Minds is a very sophisticated social media platform. I mean, they've got their own crypto. They've got, that's built in. You can have blogs on there. It's obviously it works like Facebook and Twitter, as far as the feeds. But I mean, it's very in depth. Unfortunately, it has not been widely adapted. There's a global audience on there, but it hasn't been widely adapted. So it's it's like that line in Wayne's World where they said they were talking about Star Trek: The Next Generation, right? And like I say, never let a good Star Trek reference go to waste. Hey, Scotty. Anyway, but there was a line in there where they said that even though Star Trek: The Next Generation was far superior in technology and production and all that stuff, which is true, it still, it still didn't compare, it still wasn't as classic as TOS, the original Star Trek, the original series. And, unfortunately, that's the thing with Minds. Minds is far superior to any platform out there. It really is. But it's just not, it's not widely accepted. In fact, I never even heard of this Getter thing. And so it's a pity Rogan didn't go to Minds. But I understand why he didn't go to Minds, because Minds is so freeform that, you get a lot of people, you get people doing what I guess some people would consider hate speech or something like that, almost in a sense, but not really. But I mean, people push the limit, and that's why that platform, I think, a lot of people are afraid of Minds. I just ignore it. And every now and then, I used to post, like, when I was writing my books, because my books used to be like compilations. Some of them were compilations of essays. The last two books, however, I'm going to take this thing down for a second. The last two books that you can see on the screen, Then What and Codex, were like kind of flow of consciousness thing. Though Codex was only half that. It was more of a dealing with the hard problem of consciousness and AI and things like that. Be that as it may, and that directly behind me is that next thing is like an virtual reality headset on top of the analog old AM tube analog radio. Quite the contrast, right? So it's a pity that, I hope the same situation doesn't happen with Getter. In other words, just do it. It would be great. It would be such a significant event that it would be historic. It would be historic. Now let's further address what Poole, like, his concern was about. The idea is that we don't need to be talking about politics. Politics is pop culture. Because that's one thing about Rogan, and I think he's in many ways, some people have called him the Oprah for guys or stuff like that, weird things like that. And, while he is, a fairly intelligent guy and he asks some good questions, it's a long form thing. When you're long form, you're going to get, people are going to, like, a lot of information is going to come out from your guests. Just like mine, I do these 2-hour things. It's long form. So it's a free flow of consciousness. I don't have any notes or anything like that in front of me here, right? I'm just sitting here. It's morning. It's 5:03 a.m. Eastern time in my studio, right? I got camera 2 up in the corner there that shows the trucks go by outside, the neighborhood. But I mean, I have a full production studio here, and, it's
The only station that matters.
You know, it's much better than even some of these YouTube millionaires that have like, you know, assistants and production staffs, right? And engineers and this, all that. I mean, because I have this stuff and it's all branded for me. You know, that's the whole thing. And I don't see these people doing that, right? At least certainly people, you know, just some guy, you know. Now I have the background in it, so I'm able to do this. But politics is pop culture, which is an ongoing theme in my books and in my songs and in my, you know, in my shows that I've done in the past. It's a fool's errand. It's a waste of time. Politics. You know, we live in a corporatocracy, all right? You openly admit that there's big pharma is like, right now, big pharma is running amok. It's completely out of control. It's literally, you know, as one of the components of the corporatocracy, you know, among big tech, big data, military contractors, big media, you know, et cetera, right? People say, who's running the country? It's clearly not Joe Biden. Well, of course not. It's the corporatocracy. And, of course, the unelected bureaucrats in these D.C. bureaucracies, right? But they're in league with the corporatocracy, you know. That's the true revolving door, right? So who cares about politics? They're meaningless arguments. It's jabberwocky. I mean, like the 2022 elections, like who cares? Save America. You can't save America. It's already gone. It's a former United States. Western civilization has already fallen. Right? Like I say, the phoenix is not going to rise from the ashes. What are you talking about? You got to be kidding me. Right? There's not going to be some civil war. All right? You're already having a civil war. It's the Civil War information war. Right? People have been conditioned, indoctrinated, you know, through an education system and then propagandized through a media. So they're already like, their mind is set. You know, when you donate to a political campaign, that money goes to advertising on the networks. You know what that does? That makes the news readers and the owners of the stations wealthier, so they could double down and cause more divisiveness. In other words, the people who support, who push politics as pop culture and who talk day in, day out about politics. That's why I'm saying Twitter was the ultimate destruction of the U.S., destroyed the U.S. Literally. Jack, he literally brought down the United States of America. And somebody said, come on. No, seriously. Because, you know, I mean, if you don't see it, it's right in your face. People are focused too much on puppets, politicians that are just meat puppets. All right? Their strings are being pulled by special interest, and the special interest is the corporatocracy. Is Big Pharma is like right now, currently, Big Pharma is one of the biggest, you know, puppeteers. But come on, Nancy Pelosi's a marionette, and so is Mitch McConnell, right? So is Rand Paul. You know, they're all basically, you know, and it's all hypocrisy for profit. You know, let's face the facts. You know, I talked about this yesterday, you know, the whole idea, and on a couple other shows, but this whole idea of insider trading in the halls of Congress. And both political parties making millions of dollars on insider trading. But if someone out here did it, right? Even someone like Martha Stewart, I brought her up as one of the examples, she ended up going to jail. Nobody in Congress went to jail for insider trading, but it all came out. They made millions. And they do every time, in the prelude to certain bills and stuff like that, and they're constantly in contact with K Street, right? The people, the special interest groups of the corporatocracy. So they know what's going on. Everything's fixed. You can't change it. You can't change it with an election. There's no red waves going to make America great again. Right? I mean, do you really understand it, or don't you? So what you want to do is you want to topple Twitter, okay? You want to end the arguments. See, you want to end the divisiveness. And if you want to go over to Getter, and maybe it should be like I was starting to get into about, like, in comparison, Rogan, say, to Tim Pool, is that Rogan will have on some guy who'll talk about, the great Hadron Collider or something. Or he'll bring on Randall Carlson and Hancock, and they'll talk about, civilizations. How old is, when were the earliest civilizations, and archaeological digs and stuff. He'll bring on people, nutritionists, that'll talk about things like xylitol kills the bacteria in your mouth that causes, cavities and stuff. And then he'll bring on some controversial figure, and then that show will get, like, over time, 40 million views. All right. But he's not limited to it's not political discourse. That's not that show. You can't say the Joe Rogan Show is a political show, because it's not. I used to watch it fairly regularly. I don't watch it anymore. I don't particularly, it's like, that's not my thing, and because it's a variety show, it's the same as with people with me. Sometimes the guest he has on, I have no interest in, right? And having done, having been someone who has written 10 books and who's done 500 some long form video shows, I've studied a lot of these issues, dove deep into them, right? So I'm familiar with the actual facts. And so in that instance, he might have a guest on. It's like, well, that guy has nothing. There's nothing new that I know with that guy. I've read that guy's book, or I've seen that guy's paper. I've seen his website. I've seen him talk. I've seen a seminar or him talking somewhere before. So I have no interest in something like that, but I'll watch every now and then, or I'll watch the clips or something like that. That's just me. Some people have the habit of watching, a certain thing every day. It's their thing, their show. Right. And I think that's what Twitter has become for a lot of people. I'm pouring coffee. I realized there's, like, in this vanilla chai that I put in my coffee, just because the coffee's bad and I just want to use it. Use it up. Because there's still a lot of 100% Colombian coffee in there. And there's probably some remnants of Kona coffee in there as well. That rather than throw it away, I make it extra strong, and then I put a little bit of this vanilla chai in it. The only problem with the vanilla chai is I notice it has soy in it. I'm not eating dairy products right now, because yesterday I was talking about the gallbladder. So just to follow up for that, for people who are like my regulars,
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
Here's what happened. I took a walk. So I walked, to the grocery store, and I got myself some apple cider vinegar, some 100% lemon juice, and some raw honey. All right. And I also ordered, and it's supposed to come today, 1-day delivery. I hope it happens. I ordered some raw unfiltered honey, which is like the primo. That's what you really want. It's, first of all, you could buy pure honey. That's good. You just want to make sure that, because the FDA is, full of shit, basically, half the time, because all you got to do is turn on your television set and you'll see, if you use the drug such and such and such and such, and you've developed blah, 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 or died, contact the law firm of hey, and hey, you'll get some money, So the FDA approved that drug, obviously, initially, right? So anyway, it's like organic. You have to watch these words that say pure, organic, natural, all natural, right? Natural and artificial flavors, right? But they don't tell you what they are. Like, it was like that. Remember, I was telling you about the one. I mean, you probably wouldn't if there's somebody else watching this. A name. I'm not going to mention the name brand. Very famous green tea, iced tea, right? Green tea. It contains honey and ginseng, right? And then when you go to the back of it, it's like high fructose corn syrup and a bunch of other stuff you can't even pronounce. It's basically a can of water with high fructose corn syrup and it's like CO2 in the atmosphere. The atmosphere is 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, and 0.9% argon. So 99.9% of the Earth's atmosphere is nitrogen, oxygen, and argon. And that other 0.1%, these trace gases, are CO2, which is 0.004%, water vapor, methane, and some other ones that the average person wouldn't even be aware of. Right? So that's like the can looking at always look at the ingredients. All right? Because that's the same with this climate crisis stuff. 0.004 is a trace gas, CO2. It's not affecting anything. The only thing affecting the atmosphere is this. All right? Our star, that big ball in the sky. And it's going to have a little outburst at one of these points, and the grid's going to go down, and my show's not going to be on, and neither is Rogan's or Tim Pool's. And it may be down for 10 years. Put it this way, if the grid goes down for 6 months, there'll be total mayhem and dystopia will ensue. Okay, all that said, I'm trying to stay on topic when I get on these tangents. So I was talking about ingredients, FDA. The heck was I talking about? Me. Let me get back on track on there. So watch it whenever you order. If it says organic, or I was talking about honey. If it says organic or pure honey or pure this or pure that, read the label. And I even because I look into this kind of stuff. I investigate it I'm not going to get in all my health issues I've had over the years, but I have found you have to look into the criteria and what the threshold is for calling something pure, and even what they can list on the labels. Like sometimes they can list the ingredient on that label and not list other ingredients that are in there. You have to be very careful, all right? Particularly if you have certain things that you don't want. If you're like a diabetic, or you have some allergy to something or whatever. You got to be careful with these labels because they just freely put these words out: organic, pure, natural, flavors. What is that natural flavor? Technically everything on the earth is natural. Even pharmaceuticals are technically, natural and organic. Like I say, fossil fuels, you can't get more organic than that, right? Did you ever walk by the, out in LA, the La Brea tar pits? That's basically what crude oil is. All right. It's tar. It's like tar. If you ever been up close to that. So you can't get more organic than what they call fossil fuels. It's organic, right? And just to get on this tangent, but I want to get back to the honey thing and what I was going through. That the Tesla car, the electric car, basically runs on mostly run on, depending on what part of the country you're in. But many Tesla cars are running on fracked gas and coal. Now the drivers there going, what are you talking about? I'm running on batteries. It's electric, It's like, no, it isn't, man. It's running on fracked gas and coal. All right. So I bought this stuff. So anyway, you have to check the beekeepers. So when you see something, look where the honey came from if you're buying honey. This show isn't about honey, so don't worry. I'm going to get over this real quick. And make sure that it's a real farm, it's a real place, real beekeepers, and that whole shebang. And, a lot of these places will have websites, and I'll always investigate. Like I say, don't take my word for it, somebody else's word for it. Don't even take the word of something you look on the internet once. Look twice, look thrice. All right. You know what I mean? And then ask your doctor or nutritionist if it's that important to you, because, the internet's broken, basically. The internet's good for finding simple answer like I did, when we went to it before. How many people moved over here? What is this? What's the capital of, New York, like I said yesterday. Yeah, that's fine. But so what? You could ask your voice assistant or anything for that, or look at, it's available in an encyclopedia. In the early days of computing, the Webster's Dictionary and Thesaurus and stuff like that was actually built into at least in my early Macs. It was already there. So anyway, so I ordered this. So the raw is better than just pure. You want pure raw, but then the unfiltered is even better. And of course, royal jelly, which is virtually impossible to get. That is like the stuff, the ultimate. So I had this pain in my gallbladder and my lower back. And I clearly was having some kind of gall thing. So I ordered this stuff. I drank a ridiculous amount of water yesterday. Took some apple cider vinegar, and actually I had some aloe stuff. I had some aloe juice, which is weird. I took a Chanca Piedra, which is Peruvian for stone breaker, which I had left over, even though they were a month past their expiration date. I figured they still have to be good. I hope they are. I took one this morning too. Took some magnesium. I'm drinking coffee, and I'll drink a lot of water today. And I'm hoping that that'll be enough that it's not like I'm trying to cleanse anything. I'm just trying to keep the passages clear. See, as you get older, and those who don't know me or the show, this chair is 20-some years old, and it just is the worst. So anyway.
Hey, it's me. How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. I doubt if Tim Pool will be looking at this show, but if he does, he might be offended by being called Beanie Boy. But, I really mean that, because I watch his show, I admit it. And it's a pretty good show. And for the most part, they have decent guests on there. And some of his regulars, that seem to be there most of the time, they've got some good points. The guy with the shirt, sorry, dude, if you're watching, I don't know your name, but the guy who wears a different shirt every day or something, makes his own shirts or something. So I highly recommend his show, because they get into some interesting thing. He tries to stay, the same reason why I don't watch Rogan with regularity, I don't necessarily watch Tim Pool with regularity, because he tries to be, the centrist too much. Like it's almost always like, and it's like, there aren't two sides to every story, man. I say this all the time. Sometimes a thing is just a thing. Okay. And that feeds right into this idea of getting rid of Twitter. Everyone should exit Twitter. All right. And let Twitter just be an echo chamber for a bunch of extremists. All right. And so it becomes meaningless and no longer has any value to the people who are funding it. You see? So say some extreme right people stay there, but it's mostly populated. Twitter's mostly populated by far leftists. All right. And it's run by far leftists. So if most of the conservatives or people who lean a little bit to the right or libertarian types, if they would all go, and whether it's Getter or something else, it doesn't matter. All right. Then that's the end. That would just spell the end of Twitter. It would just become Gab or Parler or something. And that their infrastructure, their employee structure, their corporate structure couldn't handle losing the amount of revenue that they're getting, if they were to lose these millions and millions of people. And that's how you win. You see, that's the answer. It's not elections. It's as simple as just closing an account. And so if guys like Rogan and Tim Pool and other people like that, people, Dave Rubin, if these influencers out there, right, who have audiences, in the millions, if those influencers would all get on the bandwagon, would all get out there and say that they could affect real positive change in this country. And that is that the elimination of Twitter is probably the most single important thing to at least buying us some more time, more sanity in this country. And it would send a message that would have repercussions throughout, all political circles, right? And that's what you want to do. Right now, the left is like they're beating their chests. They're like, hey, hey, let's do whatever we want to do, And that, you've got to put the fear of the Lord in them, I feel a healing coming on. I feel a healing. I could feel it. Come on, I could feel it. Get with me, brothers. Get with me. You got to leave Twitter. You got to leave it. You got to leave it today. You got to leave it. Okay? Really. Otherwise.
Your papers, please.
That's where we're headed. Otherwise. I'm serious.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. I'm serious. That's where we're heading. And if you don't like the way I talk,
go ahead and shoot. You'll be doing me a favor.
But it's right in your face. There's a golden opportunity presenting itself right now, right here, right now, like that song used to be out, was it the 80s or something? Right here, right now. Okay? It's presenting itself. The question is, do you have the balls to quit Twitter? And do you have the balls to go out to Twitter by being banned? By putting a top 5 or top 4, whatever you could fit in those 140 characters, however good a wordsmith you are, right? Those big, there are certain things you just cannot say. And so you want to say them all. Just put them in a list. Put one, bracket, You know what I'm saying? Just do it. That alone will freak him out if millions of people did that. Okay, number one. That's what I mean. Share this video, spread this, at least take this clip part idea of what I'm trying to get across, or say it in your own words. I don't care. I don't need the credit. All right. I'm not monetized, so it doesn't matter. I don't get anything from this. So that is so crucial. That is way more powerful than a red wave or any of that kind of nonsense. Because all you're going to do with a red wave is going to basically put more puppets in Washington. And if you don't realize, and if you can't see the power that big pharma has, that big tech has, right? That big ag has, right? And that big media has. If you don't see that, forget about, because, right, who knows what the military industrial complex is up to right now, right? What kind of war games are they planning and strategizing? How are they they got some ideas. What are they putting together the little plans for Ukraine, right? Look, the eastern part of Ukraine is Russia. Just let Russia have it, okay? They're Russians. They want to be Russians. So let them be Russians, right? It was the same with Crimea. Crimea was Russians. They spoke Russian. They were Russians. They had Russian, festival, celebrations. They had Russian culture, heritage. It wasn't like it was like Russia took over some place. No, Crimea, it was Russia. Just accept it. But that the generals are all up to that, and the military contractors, because they get $1 million a missile, ridiculous amounts of money for these things, billions of dollars for these jets and various other, all this high-tech stuff they have now. They're building robotic armies. Then, of course, Taiwan. I don't want to get into a socioeconomic geopolitics discussion right now, but I mean, it's part of reality. It's part of the world we live in. It affects us, certainly. Some foolhardy, trigger-hardy guy with the finger on the button, right? It's like they had those special forces guys, in there on that so-called, this is January 6th, right? That's like some big thing. All I know is I was watching RSBN, if anybody knows that network on YouTube, because I already had cut the cord to the TV. I had DirecTV and I got rid of it. And so I was watching that Trump rally that day on YouTube. I was flipping around and I froze on it for a while. I was curious. And then I guess I don't know if they had another camera up there or not, or if it was some other, some other channel or whatever. But I remember seeing, so that rally continued to go on. There was nothing said at that rally. See, if you watched it and you listened to it, right, that was in any way provocative whatsoever. I heard somebody yesterday saying it was the fault of Trump for waiting too long he didn't even know what was going on. Did you ever see when he got into his little rally speeches and stuff? He was like, he's in his own little world, because that was like an ego trip for him. The dude, he gets into that. Why else would he do that? He really got into those rallies. He had no idea what was going on up at the Capitol. And their original plan, because like I said, this is what I can't stand when I watch, why I cut the cord to the news. And what I can't stand, even when I see clips or I see these pundits, and other vloggers talking about a thing. I'm going but did you watch it in long form? It's like I used to watch the press conferences, And I used to watch, in the early days of this thing, that won't go away, when they were having their daily briefings, right? I'd watch them, right? And so I'd watch it in its entirety. And then I'd hear discussions by, commenters, pundits, vloggers, whatever. And I go, that's not the way it was. That's out of context. That's not what they said. Right? Well, anyway, on that January 6th thing, man, that is one of the fishiest, weirdest, bizarre things, that's going on. And today they're going to have like wall-to-wall coverage of this thing. And here's the kicker. Do you know who's going to talk about it? Guys like Tim Pool. And they're in other words, what you need to do is you need to just ignore it. You ignore them. See, this is what I was trying to say about Twitter. The social media jabberwocky should end. What if nobody talked about it at all? Okay? Nobody. I'm looking at my chat and there's like these weird things, I don't know. I was like reporting those things for a while. It's just, it's nonsensical stuff. It's some nonsensical thing. Somebody said it goes to some weird sites or porn sites or scam sites or something like that. But it's like, now you're telling me that YouTube doesn't have the ability to block that kind of thing? And how does it appear on chat but it doesn't appear as a viewer? Because I have like my monitor, I have like, it's almost like I'm a day trader. That's why I have my setup here because I control everything myself. So I can see over here my analytics and YouTube, live thing. Then straight ahead of me, I'm using this open source OBS type of thing. That's how I can do all this, crazy stuff like bring up this, that, the other myself. And then over on the other side, I have all of these, Thank you. Thank you very much. So at any given time, I have this view. And so peripherally, right? Hard word to say. Peripherally, I can see that if a number over here changes, like a 1 to a 2 or whatever. No. But I noticed that a chat, these two chats have come up from two different things. So, but no viewers. So what's up with that? Is that some kind of game? Does YouTube make money off that somehow? I mean, what's the deal? I don't get it. Is it if I don't report them, is it something that they would use to say, because I've heard about people who've gotten, I'm just reporting it as pornography, though I don't know if it is, but someone else told me it was. So I'm going from that. But I've heard of people getting banned or having problems or being like not able to broadcast because of comments that were in their comment section. Well, how do you control what's in your comment section? If you get some weirdo making some strange comment, right? That's one thing. I can't even see my comments. I have comments open, but I don't know where that is, actually, to tell you the truth. But nobody ever seems to comment till after the fact. But yes, the schoolyard bully concept. Don't pay attention to them. Walk to the other side of the schoolyard. Why are you arguing with people on Twitter? You're not going to change their minds. Why are you donating to a political campaign all it's going to do is put an advertisement on a station, right? It's most likely a left-leaning station. And so someone who's like ideologically gone, right, is going to go, oh, wow, I saw that commercial. I think I'm going to vote for the other guy now. Yeah, right. You know that's not going to happen. Do you see the absurdity? So why would you waste your money doing that? See, the most positive thing that you can do right now, there are two things that could literally affect positive change. One would be a mass exodus from Twitter, okay? This weekend. Mass exit. Today actually would be the perfect day because today's going to be, they're going to want to argue back and forth about January 6th, right? No, don't. Quit today. Don't respond. Let these people have an echo chamber. And you vloggers out there, don't talk about it. Talk about other stuff, right? There's plenty of other things to talk about, right? Talk about big pharma. Talk about what's bubbling under, you know, who knows what kind of war games and stuff they're planning, right? Where's the next moneymaker going to be for the military contractors? You know, this is a new year, right? They've got shareholders. They've got to make money, right? And, you know, the annual defense budgets are fine and dandy, but it's not, you know, that's like kind of your base revenue, you know, it's like in any business, you know, that's your base avenue, you're almost, you know, that covers your fixed expenses or something like that. But they need, you know, the variable expenses. They need that war so that they could, you know, get that quarter over quarter, year over year profits, right? And deal with, you know, growth, right? So, you know, that's going on. That's something that people should be talking about. You know, people should be talking about the sun and the solar cycles and all that stuff that's going on. A lot of people just aren't paying attention to that at all. I'm not going to get into that today because I'd rather dedicate an entire show to that, or shows. I will dedicate shows to that. People aren't talking about that. People aren't talking about, you know, people want topics to talk about. Why don't people talk about what I mentioned about the atmosphere, the composition of the atmosphere, and that CO2 is just a trace gas, and the people driving electric cars are basically driving gas and coal run cars, unless you happen to live close to a, some kind of dam, you know, where there's primary hydroelectric, or if you're right in an area where there's like a big solar farm or something like that. But generally speaking, and it's wintertime in the northern latitudes, and you know, no electric or solar farm can produce the amount of heat necessary to warm a house when it's like, I don't know, let's see what the temperature is. It was like windy last night. It woke me up. It was like 19 degrees last night. Tonight it's going to be 18 degrees. Tomorrow, Friday night, I'm in the mid-Atlantic states. It's going to be 12 degrees. Okay? And looking ahead, Saturday 25, these are overnight temperatures. Sunday 18 and Monday 10. 10 degrees. All right? Do you ever try heating something with electric when it's 10 degrees? Or, you know, and it looks like, who knows, if we're having that now, we could have one of those Februaries where it's below zero weather. And, you know, no one ever talks about that. You know, no one ever talks about that. These they ignore the whole northern part of the United States of America, the upper half, literally. Right? Look at all the snows out in the Northwest, which is nothing new. You know, and the high plains. Not to mention Canada. Canada is like, Trudeau's out there. He's like Mr. Mr. Green Jeans. But it's like, hey, buddy, what are you going to do? Chop down trees? You got to heat. How are you going to heat things? I don't really think about it. Major cities and stuff. So there's plenty of stuff to talk about. This idea of politics as being pop culture and the main topic, and the cult of personality of people who are in politics or entertainment even and stuff like that. It's like they're just people, man. And besides, they're mostly puppets. Marionettes. And so there doesn't need to be a bunch of jabberwocky on Twitter, right? It just doesn't. It's unnecessary. So what? There's other things to talk about. Improving, you want to improve things, improve the country, improve the quality of life for people. This whole idea, one of the big issues, like I touched on yesterday, because yesterday was a health thing. And I was the show dealt not mainly with health, but just in passing, because I'm just talking about potential topics today, right? That people argue on social media about. But, what about that thing I touched on yesterday about where one of the governors found out that the federal government had cornered the market on treatments for the thing. And that when they tried to get the treatments direct from pharmaceutical companies, they hit a brick wall, and the pharmaceutical companies, so the government has, bought all that out. And the government wasn't releasing it to the state because they're so obsessed with this idea of getting everybody, that thing, that they're making hundreds of billions of dollars on, but it's not working. I mean, you seen what's going on in Israel? They're talking about a fourth, going to a fourth shot, but their numbers are like way up. But they keep, do you see what I mean? It's like people are defying, like they're looking at something and they're not seeing what's there, right? Or they're hearing, they hear you talk, but they're not listening to your words. But in this case, so it's like they look at this stuff and they say, oh, well, the numbers are going up. But but all these people got 3 of these things. Okay, then don't you think maybe you ought to, that's not working. Now but we know that the treatments do work. Speaking of Rogan and Poole, right? They both got the kitchen sink. It worked. Trump got it. It worked. What? Psaki, however you pronounce her name, the press secretary, Biden's press secretary, she got it. It worked. So there's something that's proven to have worked, right? So why aren't they doing that? Instead, they're pushing this other one. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Big Pharma is in charge right now, right? They have total control. And so they're pulling the strings. They're calling the shots. And they're saying, hey, literally calling the shots, pun intended. And they're saying, no, this is hundreds of billions of dollars for us. We have to, we've manufactured these. And our tax dollars went to pay for it. And so, this is crazy. And, it's mass insanity. Because people are seeing this, but they're not saying anything. And those who are on social media are afraid to talk about it because they don't want to get banned. Because social media is their whole life. And I wonder what's going to happen. What happens if we get a CME or something like that and it knocks out the internet? if people are afraid of getting banned from Twitter or something like that, imagine when there is no Twitter, okay? I don't know. Yesterday's subtitle or whatever was, and it's getting more and more absurd. It's ridiculous, This is insane. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So, yeah, there's a golden opportunity presenting itself right now, and I doubt if anyone's going to seize the moment, especially today. Now, because I had forgot. Because, see, I don't really care about this January 6th thing, because, like I said, I was watching all that stuff, and, it just seemed to me that it was agent provocateurs, and now we've learned that there was, like, special forces types of people in there that were probably acting as agent provocateurs, it seems. I mean, what else were they doing there? And how did they have advance notice? And if they did have advance notice, well, they could have easily just created a gauntlet of, National Guard trucks and Jeeps and basically closed off the Capitol that day. Right? I mean, if you're going to mobilize special forces, right, and have that whole plan meeting, that wasn't done 5 minutes before. Okay, this was planned, days, at the very least a day before. So you understand that this whole thing is blatant. It's in your face. Like I say, people see a thing, but they don't, and hear a thing, but they don't listen to the words, or they see with their eyes, but they don't believe, whatever, the photons going back to the optical, somewhere on the path from here to here, it gets lost. So yeah, this whole January 6th thing, I mean, come on. They knew about it. The whole thing could have been prevented. And meanwhile, while all this stuff is going on, Trump's down there and he's laughing and telling jokes and stuff. He doesn't know it. He didn't even know it was going on. And there were people, like always, leaving the rally who just left and went home, like the other way. They weren't even going up there. And the whole idea originally, was like it was a peaceful rally. But the whole idea was that they were maybe going to have a peaceful. So, I don't know, man. And so people are going to talk about that kind of thing and argue and show clips. And in other words, you're giving, if you ignore the bully, if you ignore the liar, if you ignore the agent provocateurs, you walk away from them. You don't give them the microphone. You don't put them on camera. Guess what? They are powerless. And that's what I'm trying to say about Twitter. You see? So, Tim, you were wrong in thinking that. Because there is more to life than politics. And you may be making a living out of it. But at what cost? What cost to humanity? What cost to the quality of life for the average U.S. citizen? Right? And you people out there who are on Twitter and you're afraid to close your account, what cost to this country? What cost to your family? What cost to the future generations just because you have some kind of addiction to Twitter? Like I say, it's a little bit different than Facebook. I could understand people wanting to show pictures of their kids to their relatives, or here's our vacation, stuff like that. Facebook is, the majority of Facebook is silly stuff. Right? It's silly stuff. And then there's a lot of people and businesses that just use it as their business website. That's another thing. Our websites, just visit our website, our Facebook. That's our website. Because they don't want to hire a webmaster or spend any money. So they're so cheap that Facebook is their business website. And then, of course, you have the Twitter types. You've got people on there who are political too. But it's totally different than Twitter. Twitter is exclusively, you don't say, come see, visit our Twitter site is our business website. Not really. I mean, I'm sure there's some people that post stuff, and there's a lot of businesses on there, but I mean, it's not like, you're not going to get all the key information there the way, it's not the same thing. Right? So just quit it. Quit it. Send a message that will just shake the halls of Congress, right? It'll shake the halls of Congress and say, we don't care about you. We know you're puppets. We know you're insignificant. We know you're being run and ruled, and your strings are being pulled by big pharma and big tech and big media and the big contractors and Wall Street, right? We know that you're basically just pawns for the World Economic Forum, right? And a Davos set and the elite, okay? Which is nothing more than an organized crime syndicate, by the way. Send that message to them. And that's what you could talk about. It's not conspiracy theory. That's fact, right? It's out there. It's on their websites, right? So there's a million things to talk about, and you could still make your money, and people will still watch you. Rogan is a prime example of it, and that where he can basically have a variety show in effect and be the by far, hands down, the highest rated show, even higher rankings than traditional, cable media. But he's not talking about politics every day. You see? There's a lot of stuff out there. And like I said, I don't mean to just get on Tim Pool's case here, though. I mean, obviously, the Cap and Beanie Boy. I'm sorry, man. It's a free speech here, I got, I'm trying to make a point across here. All right. But the idea is that, as people on your show that, they bring up some good, interesting stuff. You should explore some of the more edgy topics. Don't worry, you're not going to lose your monetization. Right? People want to hear the edgy stuff. Right? It's up to people, it's up to the influencers, and you're an influencer. Okay? Someone who has a large audience is an influencer. I'm not an influencer. Okay? But you're an influencer. So you can direct the conversation, into a certain areas. You can shine a light on certain things that otherwise are just, the average person is just completely unaware of. And even if you want to stay somehow, keep a foot, as they say, into the political arena, there's an awful lot of other things going on politically that aren't necessarily bannable things to talk about that are worthwhile digging into. And that's what's very disappointing. I see that all the time. I see that with with locals. I'm disappointed. I have a locals account, I'm disappointed with locals. I see a lot of people, and I'm hoping, I had some high hopes for Rumble. We'll see what comes down if they get into doing live stuff or whatever, where it's not pay to play. Right now it's pay to play. If I want to do a live show on Rumble, I have to pay for it. Right? Well, that sucks. So, in other words, freedom of speech comes at a price. Is that the way it is? And it's the same with, And Locals has like a 30-minute, you get at the base level, you have to pay. It's a pay-to-play site. So I have to pay to be on there. So I get 5 30-minute live broadcasts a month at the low level or something. If I want more, I guess, I don't know, man. It's like you're cattle and you don't know it. You're cattle and you don't know it. Why don't you confront, speak truth to power like I do. That's what you need to do. Speak truth to power. But unfortunately, they're afraid of it. I just got 2 more of these things. These weird, whatever the hell they are. They're in I'll show you what I'm doing. It's going to be hard for you to see, but there it is. You see, this one particular one was some kind of Russian thing. So I'm just reporting it. I'm saying it's pornography because that's what somebody told me it was. I don't know if it is or isn't, but let them argue with YouTube. I don't think they're going to argue with YouTube about it. Because whatever it is, it's some kind of scam. It's crazy. So yeah, there's a golden opportunity right now, and I have a feeling that basically everyone's going to blow it. If you're one of those 7.8 million people that Joe Rogan has suggested to quit Twitter and go over to Getter, do it. I'm going to do it. All right. I'm going to do it this weekend, and I'm going out, I'm going to go off Twitter by basically, saying everything that you can't say so that I have to be banned. Better, go out, get kicked off. I don't know. Why quit? Get kicked off, It's like a job, you hate the job, you hate your boss, quit, right? Quit. And, but go into his office and Heil Hitler, the guy or something. You know what I mean? Some dictator, boss, weird guy, go out and let him know, that he's a jerk and an asshole. So yeah, no, leaving Twitter would be the best thing, would actually be the most positive thing that could ever happen in this country. And I know I'm just getting repetitive now, so I guess it's only 6 o'clock in the morning, 6 a.m. But, that's it. I think I'm done.
Good morning.
So anyway, thanks for tuning in. Maybe I'll do this. Maybe I'll do this tomorrow because we'll see what happens. We'll see what goes on today. See if anybody has the balls to really quit. That'll be great. Otherwise, you could visit my site, TonyCaravanLive.com or ROCKFLUX.com. I mean, this locals thing, I have a local shop site, not shop, shopping links. If you want to get my book or solar stuff or the shirts or that hoodie the girls were in, you can get all that stuff go to ROCKFLUX.com. There's links there. Anyway, quit Twitter.